On today's show, the playoffs are almost here, and there's nobody better to catch up with about the Cleveland Cavaliers than Brian Windhorst. He joins the show on today's edition of Locked On Cavs.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? My name is Danny Cunningham. You might know me from my time covering the Cleveland Cavaliers, places like my Substack, The Inside Shot, Cleveland Magazine, 92.3 The Fan, and a number of other stops along the way. I want to say thank you to you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure a friend is subscribed as well. And if you're watching the show on YouTube, do me a favor. Hit that thumbs up button for me. Click subscribe and hit that notification bell because you don't want to miss the latest Locked On Cavs content, a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. That's code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase with Game Time. ESPN's Brian Windhorst joins the show today. We had a really great conversation about where the Cavs are at this year, what to expect in the postseason from them. Obviously, we still do not know who the first round opponent will be. As we recorded this, it was before the 9-10 game between the Miami Heat and Chicago Bulls. As you're listening to this, you will know who the Atlanta Hawks are playing on Friday and which of one of two teams the Cavs will be playing in the first round beginning on Sunday night at Rocket Arena. Very thankful for Brian to take the time to join. Of course, you know him from Brian Windhorst and the Hoop Collective. He's a 2-time New York Times best-selling author. He's got 2 really great books. One of them is over my shoulder right now. If you look at LeBron Inc., the other one, of course, Return the King. And Brian, as you probably know, was on the Cavs beat for a really long time, both at the Akron Beacon Journal and then Cleveland.com, and has done tremendous NBA coverage throughout the rest of his career at ESPN. I think he's the best podcaster there is as far as the NBA goes. I think he's somebody that is fantastic at what he does. And I couldn't be happier that we sat down for about 15, 20 minutes, talked about what the Cavs have going on this season, what to expect in the postseason. And the question I was most curious, what needs to happen for them to beat Boston? So that is straight ahead right here on Locked On Cavs. But before we get to that, make sure you sign up for the Locked On Cavs daily newsletter, your one stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. You can sign up for free right now at lockedondaily.com. And if you do that, if you subscribe between now and April 30th, you will be entered to win a $2,500 Best Buy gift card, a $300 Game Time gift card, and a $200 Fanatics gift card. So again, go to lockedondaily.com to sign up for that today. And without anything else, here's my conversation with Brian Windhorst. Brian, thanks so much for taking the time. Very much appreciated. Just kind of want to get started with obviously the playoffs beginning for the Cavs on Sunday, 64-18. Don't know who they're going to be playing in the first round as of right now, but when you look at this postseason for them, what do you view as fair expectations moving forward?
Because I have so much respect for you and your audience, I'm wearing a lot of makeup so that I want to put my best foot forward. They need to get to the conference finals. They're the number 1 seed. They have had a great opportunity to rest. They've had a great opportunity to prepare. The team that they're going to face in the first round is going to be a highly flawed team. I don't know who it's going to be, but it's going to be a flawed team, and it's going to be a team that they've just have played, 48 hours before. There's really not an excuse for them not to handle their business in the first round, set themselves up for the second round. I expect the second round, assuming they get there, to be a fight, especially if it's the Pacers. I think that's a bit of a challenging matchup for them. But they need to get to the conference finals. That's the step forward for this team. I think the Celtics are the best team in the league. I think the Celtics are the favorite to win the championship. I have no idea what the Celtics will look like a month from now. I have no idea what the Cavs will look like for a month from now. You can't project out. They will have to be at their best to beat them 4 out of 7. I believe they can under the right circumstances. As we sit here today, I would not favor them to do so. But they need to get into that game and try to, get another shot at the Celtics. That's what they need to do with this, with how hard they've worked on this season.
This season, we've seen a big reason why the Cavs finished as the top team in the East record-wise in the regular season, is the step forward Evan Mobley took, and really, I guess the bounce back is probably a better way to term it for Darius Garland, getting back to playing at an all-star level. Of those two players, which one do you think there's more pressure on in this postseason?
It's a good question. I think there's probably more going to end up being more pressure on Darius because what he does is more of a variance. Plus, the teams are going to attack him. The game plan against the Cavs is to try to exploit the small guards on defense. That's what's going to happen. They're going to go at them. They're going to test them. There will be, Isaac Okoro will be ignored. I know he's much better than he was years ago, but people will not respect him. You'll see stuff like that. You'll see Jared Allen. Potentially they'll hide guys on him depending on the opponent. You'll see them do various things that will disrespect certain players, but ultimately I think Garland will be more tested. There's a lot of respect out there for Evan Mobley's defense. Look, let's just be honest. I know that Darius had some good moments down the stretch, but he was not strong in the second half of the season. He was a guy that at one point I thought was a really strong candidate to make All-NBA, and his inconsistent play down the stretch, took him off my belt. And by the way, that's not to say he didn't have a great season, but that is to say that, the way the Cavs are structured is they're structured to have these two playmaking guards that are dynamic offensively, that share the court and take over the offense when they're out. And the system is set up to protect them on the defensive end. That basic structure. And for that to work, and we saw this last year when Darius, for various reasons, obviously he had the broken jaw and coming back from that. But for that to work, you need them to be really good, especially shooting the ball. And they just were both, but they were both inconsistent shooting the ball down the stretch. When they shoot the ball, it's very hard to take a game off the Cavs, much less 4 out of 7. And so my projection is that target will move to Darius's back more than it would move to Evan's back. Although that Evan Mobley is going to potentially be the defensive rookie or the defensive player of the year and potentially an All-NBA player. And that will get announced during this playoff run. And that if he disappears offensively in some of these playoff games, that is going to be an issue. So it's not to say he's going to get a free ride, but I suspect Darius more so.
I'm glad you brought up the respect factor for what Evan does defensively, because I think there's a bigger conversation about the Cavs as a team, and you brought up the Celtics being the favorites in the Eastern Conference. The betting markets would reflect that. I certainly agree with that. I think they should be the favorites to win it all, but I get the sense that there are teams that are fearful of Boston, and I don't get the same sense that teams are necessarily fearful of the Cavs in that same way. And part of that is Boston just won a title last year, but how important is, sort of being able to have that, I guess the best way to term it would be being able to have that, that appropriate fear from opponents in the postseason.
Yeah, I don't think there's fear, but there sure is respect. I mean, one of the things that we saw, as the Cavs moved through the season, particularly that second winning streak that they put together in January, it was like night after night after night, you would see opponents and opposing coaches like starting to pay respect. Like it was like, whoa, this team is really good. We heard it from Michael Malone. We heard it from JJ Redick. We heard it from Giannis. I forget, but it was like, that was all within like a 10-day stretch. Yeah. They were getting respect. Okay. Like nobody looks at Evan Mobley and goes, oh my God, that guy is, going to remind me of Draymond Green, the way he intimidates you. He doesn't have to do that. He gets it done with his actions. And trust me, the game plans reflect that. The Cavs are not an intimidating group by their nature. Like it's not who Jared Allen is. It's not who Evan Mobley is. Darius Garland does a little bit with his game, but he's certainly not demonstrative. Donovan, he's known for smiling. That's not who they are. So if that's what you're looking for, I don't think you're going to see it with this team. But, would they sweep 17 teams this year? Or something like that?
It was right around that. I don't know the exact number, and they probably should have had a couple of more, but they didn't necessarily take, I don't think the final 6 weeks of their schedule, I don't know that they took it all that seriously. And really since February 28th, when they beat Boston in Boston, they've not played a super consequential basketball game. I think that was kind of the night that they knew they were going to be the 1 seed, and they sort of knew where all roads were leading. And I guess the one thing that I'm curious off of that from your perspective is how much does that matter? The fact that they've not played a ton of meaningful basketball down the stretch, and not to say that OKC or Boston has either, but how much does that matter in terms of finding rhythm going into a postseason run?
My friend Tom Haberstroh, who's now with Yahoo, but he used to be with ESPN, he's done extensive studies on whether momentum going into the playoffs matters. And his conclusion is it does not. Now, it's not infallible and whatever. But I agree. The Cavs did not finish strong. They finished like 8-8 or 8-9 or something like that. Basically, they were 500 for the last month. I don't really care about their record because they've proven that they're the best team in the East record-wise. I'm a little bit more worried about the broad drop in three-point shooting because when they were at their best, they were winning the three-point game every single night. And that's just not happened. They've lost that night-to-night edge. Even in games they're winning, they're not winning that battle. And again, the team is designed to do that. The way the team is structured, they're structured to win the three-point battle. If you're looking about concern, I'm more concerned that they're basically in a 6-week three-point shooting slump. And that's not who they are, nor were they the same team that had 8 guys shooting over 40% at the All-Star break or whatever it was. So neither of those are who they are. I think they'll find their level, but the continued three-point shooting slump, because they were still generating good looks. They just weren't hitting them. And especially because Garland and Mitchell shoot such high volume, they're averaging 16, 17 attempts between them per game. So the difference between those guys collectively shooting 40, 42% and shooting 30, 32%, it's a couple of threes a game. And that's the difference between being a dominating team and being a team that is relying on other guys. And so, I think the Cavs are well positioned. I'm not worried about rest versus rust or whatever, but I would like to see them get back to having that three-point shooting edge night in and night out.
Today's show brought to you by Skims. We're going to talk about my underwear because Skims is the best underwear that I've ever worn. When I found out they were making underwear for men, I was a little skeptical. I was like, really? They're getting into that business. I wonder what it's going to be like. And then I got my hands on a couple of pairs and I could not be happier. I could not be more comfortable. It's so easy to talk about this because I'm so comfortable right now wearing Skims for men. And if you want to be as comfortable and happy as I am with my underwear, Skims is the place for you to go. They've got a number of different styles. I personally have always stuck with the same style. I've rotated through a bunch of different brands throughout my underwear wearing life, but Skims is by far the ones that do it the best. Personally, I am a stretch 5-inch boxer brief guy, but if you like different styles, you like different styles. But for me, this is the best. It doesn't bunch up on the hips. It keeps its shape, which is something I think is really important when I'm looking for good underwear. So if you want to be like me and super happy with your underwear, you need to head on over to Skims. You can shop Skims men's at skims.com/lockedonnba. That is SKIMS.com/lockedonnba and in Skims stores. Plus, let them know that we sent you. After you place your order, select podcast in the survey and select our show in the drop-down menu that follows. That's Locked On NBA. Again, Skims men's at skims.com/lockedonnba, SKIMS.com/lockedonnba, LOCKEDONNBA. If you want to be as happy with your underwear as I am with mine, Skims is the place to go. Today's show also brought to you by Game Time. There's nothing like the atmosphere of an NBA playoff game, and you can be there at an NBA playoff game on Sunday in Cleveland, Ohio, and you can get in the door using Game Time because every bucket, every defensive stop, every moment is going to feel really big on Sunday and in the rest of that series against whoever they play. We don't know, but it will be electric inside that arena. And with Game Time, you can be part of it without all the stress of last-minute ticket hunting because Game Time makes it fast and easy to get playoff tickets, even when demand is sky high. And I imagine it will be for this first round series. Prices on the app actually go down as tip-off grows closer, and the last-minute deals with Game Time can save you up to 60% off. Plus, the all-in pricing means that there's no surprise fees at checkout. What you see is what you pay. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNBA, that is LOCKEDON NBA, for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. That is the one thing that I do think, and they played the Blazers. It was their first game after beating Boston in Boston on February 28th. They played the Blazers 2 days later. It was a Sunday afternoon game. They had to go to overtime. They didn't play very well, but they shot the ball well from three that night. After that game, they were number one in the NBA by a wide margin, 3-point percentage. I think they were shooting 39.5% as a team from beyond the arc for the year. Since then, they're 21st in the NBA at 35.2%. There's been a big drop off there. I think the guards has been the biggest part of that. Like, there was a stretch where Donovan Mitchell went a month where he was shooting 16% on wide open threes. I do wonder if that is the thing with having a really 10 days off, considering who didn't play in the final few games of the season. I do wonder if that's the thing that you look at and say, okay, this should bounce back with having fresh legs again, being able to reset physically a little bit going into a series.
I rounded these numbers off when I looked at them, so it's not quite this clean. But basically, you know, and you can pick a different date when you want to look, but basically from like March 1st onward, the Cavs went from making about 2 more threes a game than their opponents to making about 1 less per game than their opponent. So, you know, there's percentages in there or whatever, but that's a 3-point swing per game. That's 9 points. That's everything. So, yeah. You may not think, you may think, well, whatever. On one night, Donovan may make 4 threes. On the next night, he may make 2. On the next night, he may make 6. Yes, but on balance, the team, you know, that 9-point swing, you know, the Cavs were flirting with, you know, records in terms of net rating. Well, so I don't want to overstate it, and they could come right back out and be fine. But like, if you're going to, I'm more worried about the lack of the 3-point dominance diminishing than I am just about anything else at the highest level. Again, we're talking about like against the Celtics, against the Pacers, or something in a leverage game, because that was such a routine part of their night in and night out dominance. I mean, I didn't go back and look, Danny, but I will bet you the Cavs record in the 3-point shooting edge, like if you just looked at the game and said who shot better from 3 and percentage and numbers, I'll bet it almost mirrored their record. And I'll bet down the stretch it did the same as well.
You mentioned Boston again, and that I agree with you that if they don't make it to the conference finals, it's not a successful season, not a successful postseason. Certainly, if Boston is not on the other side of that bracket, I think everybody would be stunned considering what their path looks like and how good the Celtics are. So essentially, fill in the blank here. Blank needs to happen for the Cavs to win a series against the Boston Celtics.
Health, obviously. Health, number one. Number two, they have to be comparable in the 3-point shooting game, because the Celtics are the highest volume 3-point shooting team in the history of the sport. And it's the bedrock of how they try to beat teams. They just try to win the math problem. And they need to play from ahead. You know, they're going to start, you know, over the last decade, Danny, for a really long time, there was something like home teams won like 85% of game sevens. Really kind of led by LeBron, who started winning them on the road. Right. It's not been that way. It's been much closer to 500 for the last decade. So yes, the conventional wisdom is, game 7 at home. To me, the value in home court advantage is almost equal to starting a series at home as it is to finishing it. If you get to game 7, there's 1,000 different things can play into the variable. Obviously, you prefer to be at home, but to me, the Cavs need to play from ahead in that possible series. They need to be the ones to get up 1-0. They need to get up 2-1. They need to apply pressure to Boston. They need to keep pressure off of themselves. Because the thing about it is that the Celtics have a variance. There's going to be nights where you're not beating them. You're just not. When all 5 of their guys are hitting their shots, and Porzingis is knocking in the 30-footers and whatever, and they're getting, Tatum's getting to the line. There's going to be, you play 7 games, you figure there's going to be 2 or so nights where you're not even going to have a chance to win. So if you play from ahead, you reduce strategy, and they've spent the whole season working to have the right to try to play from ahead. And there's going to be a lot of variables that we're not going to know that before you get to that potential series. But playing from ahead would be a real way to start trying to be ahead at the end.
Last thing I want to ask, I want to jump in a time machine here because the Cavs are the first team in the NBA to win 64 games or more after winning fewer than 50 games the year before, since the 2008-2009 Cavs that won 66 games after winning 45 games.
My favorite beat season of my career. I had
you were on the beat there. What do you remember most about that season?
They won every close game. Every game that could have gone either way. They were 66-16. They had done the trade the year before to get Delonte West and Ben Wallace, but then they traded for Mo Williams, and the Mo Williams, LeBron, Delonte combination. They started the season off in October, November, and they were like, they didn't start off 15-0, but they were blowing teams out. It was almost like we were looking around. These games would be over in the second quarter, but then when they would. Every single time there was a 50-50 game, they won. And this Cavs team was like that for a while. Like during that 16-game win streak, the back end of it, there was all these games, and they were finding different ways to win. To win 66 games, like it's almost unfathomable to me that a team could win 73 like the Warriors did that year, because
right.
And this year the Thunder won 68 and set the all-time point differential record. The Cavs won 66 games that year, and maybe you could go back and show me a game or two that they won that they lost, they could have, but like that was the absolute maximum they possibly could have won. If you had played out the exact season over 10 times, I'm not sure that team could have won more than 66, even though it was a great team. And but they lost 2 of the 3 to the Magic, and including a game they played in Orlando late in the season, like in March, where I think the Magic won by 40 or they were up by 40. And so going into that season, there was that thing in the back of your head, like, what about that Magic matchup? So when that ended up playing out, the Cavs thought for sure they were playing the Celtics. The Celtics played they swept the first 2 rounds. The Celtics played the Magic on a Sunday in Game 7, and I remember they had a practice at the arena because they hadn't been to the arena in like 2 weeks. And LeBron was at the foul line mimicking all of the Celtics free throw routines. They had studied the Celtics so much. And the Magic made a bunch of threes and stunned everybody and won in Boston in Game 7. And then it was the Magic who came in 48 hours later. They weren't ready for them, and they were a bad matchup for them. But I don't feel that way about the Cavs this year. I don't feel like there's a team that is like, oh man, that's not a good matchup. I feel like they are equipped. And not only that, Kenny Atkinson has spent the whole year preparing the team to play 4, 5, 6, 7 different ways. So, the Celtics were the enemy back then, but the Cavs weren't really positioned to adjust. Now the Cavs are positioned to adjust and win different ways.
How the Cavs look in the postseason, I think, will be something everybody has their eye on. Brian, thanks so much for taking the time, man. Very much appreciate you jumping on today.
Thanks, Danny. Take care.
Today's show brought to you by Amazon Fire TV. Did you know your Fire TV is also an Xbox? Yeah, that's right. Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console is required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe, or sign in to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. Dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports, College Football 25. That is my personal favorite. I'm in a couple of online dynasties right now. Lost in the national semifinals last season. Still bummed about it. Looking for revenge this season in my online dynasty, or maybe Call of Duty Black Ops 6, not a game that I've played, but maybe you love it. As easily as you stream your favorite shows, it's gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. Plus, with 4K streaming, you can watch more than 1.5 million movies and TV episodes from your favorite subscribed services like Netflix, Prime Video, Disney Plus, Max, and so many more. If that sounds great to you, and it should sound great to you, head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Lockdown. That is FIRE TV LOCKEDON to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K second generation, Fire TV Stick 4K Max first and second generation, and Fire TV Cube third generation. Today's show is also brought to you by Epicor. Every team knows the value of hard work, of taking pride in what you build and practicing every detail to get the best results. But no one player, no matter how amazing, can do it all alone. Working together makes getting the win easier. And at Epicor, the All-Stars are the hardworking manufacturers and distributors who create and deliver the things we all need, from aerospace to electrical to medical devices. Epicor ERP solutions are created by industry experts to help make every day easier. Seeing your whole supply chain is easier. Managing logistics is easier. Responding to price changes is easier. From small businesses with big dreams to growing enterprises with a global vision, they will equip you with the right tools to move forward, think ahead, and lead the way. Because as the clock ticks down, you need to make the most out of every hardworking minute. Easier doesn't cut corners. Easier takes the lead. Discover your success at easierwithepicor.com. That is easierwithepicor.com. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. Like I said earlier, you can find the show anywhere you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Make sure you give us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Big shout out to Brian Windhorst for joining the show. Very generous with his time. Very much appreciated having him on. Thought it was a really great conversation and hope to have more conversations, not only with him, but other folks in that realm down the road as this playoff run begins for the Cavs. And if you did miss it, the postseason schedule came out. The first 2 games for the Cavs against we don't know who will be Sunday at 7:00 in Cleveland at Rocket Arena. Game 2 will be Wednesday, 7:30 Rocket Arena on NBA TV. Again, we don't know the opponent. Game 3 will then be Saturday in whatever city the Cavs play at 1:00 in the afternoon Eastern time. Game 4 will be the following Monday. So we know what that looks like. We'll see who they play. We'll see how long that series goes. But there's a lot to look forward to with this Cavs team. Before we get out of here, make sure you hit that thumbs up button if you're watching on YouTube, and do me a favor, click subscribe and hit that notification bell, because you don't want to miss the latest Locked On Cavs content coming your way. I'll be back tomorrow talking more about the Cleveland Cavaliers.